What if reality is not what it seems? Science measures stars but ignores the soul. Spirituality heals hearts but rejects the microscope. Two worlds divided by pride and silence. Two mirrors turned away from each other. The atom was once solid and eternal. Now it dissolves into waves of light. Time bends, space curves, reality shakes. Matter dances, particles vanish, reappear again. The clockwork universe begins to crumble. Mystics once whispered, all is vibration. Physics now confirms all is flow. Equations glow where poetry once lived. Two visions suddenly reflecting the same truth. A bridge of light begins to form. Not science alone, not spirit alone, but both together weaving a new story. A vision of unity vast and deep, an awakening hidden in paradox and wonder. This is the Tao of Physics. This is only the beginning. The story of science and spirit uniting is far from over. Stay with us until the end. You won't want to miss the revelation that will change how you see everything. And if this vision inspires you, share it, give it a like, subscribe and activate the bell. So together we can bring this message to the world. Chapter 1. The apparent clash between science and spirituality. Two paths apart. For centuries, science and spirituality walked on separate roads, each convinced it held the only key to truth. One measured the stars, dissected atoms, and trusted only what could be weighed or seen. The other searched for silence, balance, and the mysteries of the inner self. Logic built machines and equations while faith built temples and rituals. The distance between them seemed infinite, unbridgeable, eternal. The eye of science. Science looked outward, breaking reality into fragments and measuring every piece. It saw atoms as solid bricks, unchanging and predictable, building blocks of a rigid universe. The cosmos became a vast machine, precise and soulless, a clock wound by impersonal laws. Its power was undeniable, yet its vision felt incomplete, a universe of matter but without spirit. The eye of spirituality looked inward, seeking what could not be touched by instruments. It listened to breath, silence, and the rhythm of existence hidden behind appearances. It spoke of yin and yang, of the Tao, of balance and flow. Its truths were written in poetry, symbols and rituals instead of numbers. It saw not fragments, but wholeness and connection. A wall between worlds. Between them stood a wall, cold and impenetrable, built of misunderstanding and pride. Scientists dismissed mystics as dreamers lost in illusions. Mystics saw scientists as blind men, dissecting life but never grasping its essence. The gulf grew wider with each passing century, until both truths seemed destined never to meet. Two mirrors turned away from each other. Cracks in certainty. Then the cracks appeared, small at first, but impossible to ignore. The atom, once thought solid, dissolved into waves of invisible energy. Time and space, once absolute, bent and curved under the weight of relativity. Certainty gave way to paradox, and the mechanical clockwork began to falter. The wall trembled under the pressure of new discoveries. The dance of matter was no longer rigid or still, but revealed as vibration and movement. Electrons flickered in and out of being, here and not here, present and absent. Particles became waves, waves became particles, blurring the boundaries of definition. Reality pulsed like a great cosmic dance, restless and alive. The universe was no longer silent, it had rhythm. Echoes of the mystics. Long before, mystics had whispered of this hidden rhythm. All is vibration, all is flow, they said in words dismissed as metaphor. Their vision spoke of an endless web where nothing stands alone. Now, physics spoke the same truth, not with poetry, but with mathematics. Ancient echoes returned in the equations of modern science. The question emerges. Could it be that science and spirit describe the same reality in different tongues, one through equations, the other through myth and meditation, both trying to map the same mysterious territory of existence? The suspicion grew quietly, powerfully, like a seed breaking the ground. Two mirrors at last, reflecting the same light. Toward the bridge. The wall was no longer unshakable, for bridges began to appear. Scientists, humbled by paradox, grew curious about ancient wisdom. Mystics, long misunderstood, welcomed the precision of modern physics. Thought met intuition, calculation met meditation, and together they wove new patterns of understanding. The first fragile steps toward union had begun. The Tao of Physics begins. This was not the end of the journey, but the opening of a doorway. Not science against spirit, but science with spirit, complementing instead of denying. The Tao of Physics was born as a vision of wholeness, a song of unity. It invited us to see with both eyes, one outward, one inward, and through that union, glimpse the mystery of the universe anew. Chapter 2. The Cracks of Certainty. When physics meets mystery. From atoms to waves. For centuries, the atom was imagined as a solid, indivisible brick of matter. But then came the shock. Electrons dissolved into waves of probability, flickering in and out of existence. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle revealed that certainty was an illusion, and reality itself was fluid. As Capra noted, science had stumbled upon a truth mystics had long whispered: all is movement, all is change. The rigid wall of classical physics began to tremble. Einstein and the bending of reality. Einstein shattered the Newtonian dream of absolutes. Space and time, once thought to be eternal frameworks, bent and curved under the pull of gravity. The universe was no longer a mechanical clock, but a living fabric. God does not play dice, Einstein protested, yet his theories opened the door to paradox. The cosmos itself had become strange, elastic, and mysterious. The quantum revolution. Quantum mechanics arrived like a storm, tearing apart every certainty. Bohr, Schrödinger, and Heisenberg discovered a world where particles became waves and waves became particles. Observation changed reality itself, as if consciousness was part of the equation. Capra saw in this a deep resonance with Eastern wisdom, where the observer and the observed are never separate. Science had crossed into the territory of philosophy. David Bohm's hidden wholeness physicist David Bohm challenged the fragmentation of modern science. He proposed the implicate order, a deeper layer of reality where everything is interconnected. To Bohm, the universe was not a machine, but a flowing whole. Mystics would have recognized his words instantly. All forms are ripples of one ocean. What science discovered through equations, spirituality had long sung in poetry. The dance of the void. In the heart of quantum physics lay an unsettling truth. The vacuum was not empty, but alive with energy. Particles flashed into being and vanished again in a restless cosmic rhythm. Greene called it the quantum foam, a seething foundation of reality. Ancient mystics had spoken of this too, calling it prana, chi, or the Tao. Nothingness, it turned out, was full. Mystics anticipated the scientists. Centuries before particle accelerators, mystics had described a world of vibration. The Rig Veda spoke of sound as the origin of creation. Chinese Taoists wrote of flow as the essence of life. Capra himself noted, "Modern physics leads us to a view of the world which is in harmony with the ancient Eastern wisdom." Science was, unknowingly, arriving where spirituality had begun. A clash of language. If the truths converged, why the division? Because science spoke in equations, while spirit spoke in symbols. One demanded proof, the other asked for experience. As Bohm admitted, the barrier was not truth itself, but the language we use to describe it. Two visions of the same mountain, drawn on different maps, misunderstood each other. The observer and the observed. One of quantum physics' greatest shocks was the discovery that observation changes reality. A particle exists in a haze of possibilities until it is measured. This mirrored ancient teachings. The world is shaped by awareness. As Heisenberg confessed, what we observe is not nature itself, but nature exposed to our method of questioning. The boundary between mind and matter grew thin, toward a shared vision. Scientists, humbled by paradox, began to read the ancient texts. Mystics, curious about science, embraced equations as metaphors for the ineffable. Capra's Tao of Physics was one of the first bridges, showing how modern physics echoed the Tao, the Upanishads, and Zen. What once seemed irreconcilable began to look like two halves of the same mirror. Unity was no longer unthinkable. The birth of a new paradigm. This was not the end of science, nor the end of spirituality. It was the birth of a new vision, holistic, interconnected, vibrant with paradox. A vision where physics is poetry and poetry is physics, where the atom dances with the mandala and the equation sings with the mantra. The cracks of certainty had opened not to chaos, but to wonder. Chapter 3. Resonances. When equations echo ancient wisdom. The language of vibrations. Modern physics uncovered that the universe is built not from bricks of matter, but from fields of vibration. Capra wrote, "In modern physics, the universe is not seen as a machine, but as a dynamic web of interconnected events." Ancient mystics had described the same truth in chants and mantras. Both science and spirituality were speaking of waves, only in different tongues. Resonance became the bridge. The dance of yin and yang quantum paradoxes mirrored the Taoist vision of yin and yang. Particles were waves, yet also particles. Light was both energy and matter. The opposites were not contradictions, but complements. Bohm explained this as the unfolding of wholeness. While the Tao had long spoken of balance, East and West had unknowingly been dancing the same rhythm. Sacred geometry and physics equations often produced patterns of astonishing beauty, spirals, fractals, and symmetries. Mystics had carved these shapes into temples and mandalas centuries before. The flower of life and the Fibonacci spiral now reappeared in particle physics and cosmology. Greene noted, "The universe seems to speak mathematics in the language of beauty." Science had rediscovered the sacred, the observer as creator. Heisenberg's discovery that observation collapses probability into reality found echoes in meditation traditions. Yogis had long claimed that awareness shapes the world we live in. "We do not measure nature itself," wrote Heisenberg, "but nature exposed to our questioning." Consciousness was no longer an outsider, but an active participant in the fabric of existence. The web of interconnection. Bohm's implicate order described a hidden fabric where all things are connected. Mystics spoke of Indra's net, an infinite web where every jewel reflects all the others. Science and spirit converged on the same vision. Nothing stands alone. As Capra observed, the Eastern view of the world is always organic and holistic. The universe was one great tapestry. The music of the cosmos physicists compared reality to vibrating strings, the foundation of string theory. Greene called it the music of the universe, where each particle is a note in a cosmic symphony. Mystics had described creation as sound, Om, the eternal vibration. The metaphor of music became the shared stage where equations and chants resonated together. Light as the universal symbol. Einstein's relativity revealed light as the ultimate constant, shaping time and space. Mystics revered light as the symbol of consciousness and awakening. In both visions, light was truth, measurable as photons, sacred as illumination. The scientific and spiritual metaphors overlapped in dazzling harmony. Physics and mysticism gazed at the same radiance. Paradox as gateway quantum theory thrived on paradox. Cats both alive and dead, particles in many places at once. Instead of dismissing contradiction, mystics embraced it as the doorway to wisdom. Zen koans and quantum experiments both pointed to the limits of logic. Where reason broke, wonder began. Paradox became the shared teacher. Toward a holistic science, humbled by mystery, began to abandon reductionism. Complexity theory, systems thinking, and ecological science all pointed to interdependence. Capra noted, "The shift of paradigm is from seeing the world as a machine to seeing it as a network." The scientific lens was widening, becoming closer to the holistic vision of spirit, the convergence of vision. This was not mysticism disguised as physics, nor physics diluted into poetry. It was a convergence of vision. Equations and mantras, telescopes and temples were aligning in a shared story of the cosmos. The clash of worldviews was giving way to resonance. What emerged was not confusion, but harmony, the echo of ancient wisdom in modern science. Chapter 4. Symbols of Unity. When science speaks in metaphors. The mirror of nature physics revealed that nature reflects itself in endless symmetries. Crystals, snowflakes, and particles all obey patterns of balance. Mystics had long seen nature as a mirror of the divine. Capra observed, "The image of the universe is mirrored in every part of it." Science and spirituality discovered the same reflection, gazing into the same cosmic glass. The circle of wholeness. From atoms to galaxies, the circle appeared everywhere as the shape of harmony. Electrons orbit in spheres. Planets revolve in ellipses. Mandalas radiate in sacred designs. David Bohm wrote, "Wholeness is implicit in every structure of the universe." The circle was more than geometry. It was the signature of unity. Fire and energy for mystics. Fire symbolized transformation. For scientists, energy became the currency of existence. Einstein's EMC2 declared that matter itself was frozen fire, ready to blaze forth. Ancient rituals of flame echoed in the modern equations of physics. The torch of knowledge burned in temples and in laboratories alike. The breath of the cosmos. In Eastern traditions, breath was life itself, prana, chi, or pneuma. Modern cosmology speaks of the universe breathing too, expanding and contracting in cycles. Greene described cosmic expansion as a rhythm written into the fabric of space. What mystics felt in lungs and silence, physicists traced in galaxies. The river of time. Mystics saw time as a flowing river, never still. Physics discovered relativity, where time bends, stretches, and even loops. Past, present, and future are illusions, wrote Einstein, but they are stubborn ones. Both traditions spoke of time not as a line, but as a living current. The river carried both equations and prayers. The web of life, Bohm's implicate order, and ecology's interdependence mirrored ancient visions of the web of being. Indra's net reflected every jewel in every other. Capra wrote, "The universe is an interconnected fabric of relationships." Science traced the network in systems, mystics traced it in meditations. The same net shimmered in both languages. The ladder of light. Mystics spoke of ascending through levels of consciousness, ladders of light toward awakening. Physics found that energy too comes in quanta, discrete steps of vibration. Schrödinger and Bohr described particles jumping between levels of energy. Both visions imagined reality as a stairway, where each step was a higher note of existence. The heart as symbol. Spiritual traditions place the heart at the center of transformation. Neuroscience discovered that the heart carries its own rhythm and field, influencing brain and body. The heart has its reasons, Pascal once wrote. Which reason does not know? Science and mysticism converged on the heart as more than a pump, an organ of meaning. The labyrinth of mystery. Mystics walked labyrinths in temples, circling toward the center of self. Scientists traced labyrinths too, DNA coils, neural networks, cosmic webs. Greene described them as mazes of unimaginable complexity, yet with a hidden order. Both paths, prayer and experiment, wandered through the labyrinth toward understanding, toward a shared language. At last, metaphors became the bridge, equations became poems, mandalas became diagrams. Capra wrote, "Science does not need to destroy the mystical, it can illuminate it." The two languages began to translate each other. Science and spirituality, once rivals, were learning to speak in harmony, telling one story with many symbols. Chapter 5. Consciousness and Connection, Toward a New Vision. Consciousness at the center. The great surprise of modern physics was discovering that the observer changes reality. This made consciousness central, no longer a bystander. Mystics had always claimed the same: mind and world are inseparable. Capra noted, "We cannot separate ourselves from the world we observe." Awareness became part of the fabric of existence, the universe. Within cosmology showed that the atoms in our bodies were born in ancient stars. The iron in our blood, the calcium in our bones, all forged in cosmic furnaces. Mystics spoke of the same truth. The universe is not outside us, but within. Science and spirit agreed, we are stardust awake to itself. Ecology of being. Ecology taught that no species lives in isolation. Every organism is part of a larger system. Bohm's implicate order echoed this. Wholeness is primary, parts are secondary. Spirituality long celebrated this truth in rituals of earth and sky. The vision of life shifted. We are threads in a living web. The mind as a field. Neuroscience began to suggest that consciousness may not be just neurons firing, but a field extending beyond the brain. Quantum theory hinted at similar mysteries. Mystics spoke of the mind as ocean, not container. The boundaries between thought and world blurred. Mind itself became a cosmic participant, healing through unity. Modern medicine found that body and mind are not separate. Stress weakens immunity, meditation strengthens it. Capra observed, "The new paradigm of medicine is holistic." Ancient practices of breath and prayer resonated with scientific data. Healing was no longer mechanical repair, but restoring balance. Time as living presence. Einstein's relativity dissolved the idea of absolute time. Mystics spoke of the eternal present as the only reality. Both visions converged. Past and future dissolve in the living now. Physics and meditation pointed toward the same discovery. The present is infinite. The language of systems theory described the world not as isolated parts, but as dynamic networks. Rivers, forests, economies, and even minds all follow similar patterns. Spirituality saw the same in the mandala, the wheel of life. Both languages converged. To understand anything, we must see relationships. Ethics in a connected world. If everything is connected, then every action has consequences. Science spoke of climate change, spirituality of karma. The message was the same. Our choices shape the world we live in. Responsibility expanded from the self to the planet. Ethics became not rule, but awareness. Toward a new human, the integration of science and spirituality was not just theory, it reshaped identity. We are no longer machines nor isolated souls. We are fields of matter, energy, and consciousness woven into one reality. The new human emerges not divided, but whole, both rational and mystical. The vision of wholeness. This chapter closes with a vision of unity. Capra wrote, "The new paradigm sees the universe as a web of relationships." Mystics sang of the same. All is one. Science and spirit now stood not as rivals, but as partners. Wholeness became the guiding metaphor for the future. Chapter 6. A New Horizon, the Future of Science and Spirit. Education. Reimagined. Education began to shift from memorizing facts to cultivating wisdom. Science offered knowledge, spirituality offered meaning, and together they formed a deeper path. Learning became not just information transfer, but personal and collective transformation. Classrooms turned into laboratories of empathy, creativity, and balance. A true education taught not only how the world works, but how to live in harmony within it. The mind and heart were trained side by side, no longer in conflict. Technology with soul machines grew smarter, but the question arose, to what end? Without wisdom, technology risked becoming a blind force of control. With spirit, it could serve life instead of consuming it, amplifying our capacity for connection. The future demanded not only engineers of code, but also engineers of conscience. Devices became tools, not for distraction, but for awakening. Technology with soul became a bridge between innovation and meaning, leadership of wholeness. Politics and business were long driven by division, fear, and power. The new horizon called for leaders who could embrace paradox, think holistically, and act with compassion. Bohm wrote, "Fragmentation is the root of crisis," and leadership learned to listen. Control gave way to integration, and dominance to service. True authority was measured not in force, but in unity created. Leadership of wholeness became the architecture of renewal. Science of compassion. Neuroscience discovered that empathy is not only moral, but biological. Mirror neurons light up when we witness another's joy or pain, binding us invisibly. Mystics had always claimed we are not separate, and science began to agree. Compassion shifted from being charity to being law of existence. Healing the world required cultivating empathy as skill and science. To ignore compassion was no longer ignorance, but violation of natural order. Economy of interbeing. The old economy treated resources as infinite and separate, ignoring limits. The new vision saw wealth in relationships, sustainability, and shared trust. Spiritual traditions praised generosity, while science measured cooperation as the secret of survival. A true economy was no longer extraction, but reciprocity and care. Value was measured not only in profit, but in resilience and connection. Economics became ecology, guided by interbeing instead of isolation. The ecology of spirit ecology revealed the interdependence of all species, each one vital. Spirituality saw the sacred in every form of life, from the smallest leaf to the greatest ocean. Together, they formed an ecology of spirit, blending data with reverence. Forests became not only resources, but teachers of resilience. Rivers were not only water, but living flows of cosmic memory. Protecting nature became an act of both survival and sacred responsibility. Arta's bridge art emerged as the natural translator between science and spirituality. Equations and rituals found expression in music, poetry, and imagery that stirred the soul. Greene noted that beauty often guided science toward truth, hinting at deeper resonance. Art reminded us that the universe was not only to be solved, but celebrated. Paintings, songs, and stories turned abstract theories into living experience. The bridge of art carried meaning across both worlds effortlessly. The crisis as catalyst. Every crisis carries seeds of transformation, though often hidden in pain. Climate change, inequality, and alienation pressed humanity toward evolution. Capra wrote, "The turning point is a choice, and our era stood at that edge." Science revealed the data, while spirit offered courage to act. Out of breakdown came breakthrough, born from the same pressure. The crisis was no longer the end, but the doorway to renewal. The birth of planetary consciousness. For the first time, humanity began to see itself as one species on one planet. Satellites revealed the Earth as a fragile blue sphere without borders. Mystics had always said, "All is one," and science now showed the image. Borders dissolved in awareness, replaced by interconnection and shared destiny. A planetary consciousness began to awaken in collective memory. Earth was no longer background, but our shared body of life. Toward the unknown, the union of science and spirituality was not the end, but the threshold. Mystery remained, deeper than equations or rituals could ever capture. The new horizon was not certainty, but wonder unending. Humanity was invited to step into the unknown with trust, not fear. Togetherness became the compass, curiosity the path, and humility the light. The journey forward was not conquest, but reverence for the infinite. Chapter 7. Tesla and the Symphony of Energy. The Man of Lightning. Nikola Tesla was called the master of electricity, but his vision went beyond machines. He spoke of the earth itself as alive with vibration and resonance. To him, lightning was not chaos, but music, an instrument of the cosmos. His experiments revealed nature as an orchestra and humanity as its listener. He stood in storms not as a victim, but as a participant. Each bolt of energy was for him a sacred revelation. The man became legend, surrounded by thunder as by prophecy. Energy as universal language. Tesla believed that energy was not limited to wires and power plants. It was the universal medium, flowing through air, ground, and stars. If you want to understand the universe, he said, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Science and spirit found a shared language in his words. Mystics heard poetry, physicists heard equations, yet both pointed to truth. Energy was not just power, but communication itself. The cosmos pulsed as one great signal, waiting to be heard. The wireless dream. In his laboratory, Tesla imagined towers sending energy across the globe without wires. He dreamed of a world connected not by machines, but by invisible waves. It was not only a technical project, it was a vision of unity. To him, the Earth was a conductor and humanity the receivers. Distance was an illusion, connection the reality. His Wardenclyffe Tower was a monument not only to science, but to communion. He sought to turn isolation into resonance across the planet. The field of resonance. Tesla spoke of resonance as the hidden law of nature. Every form, from atoms to planets, vibrated in rhythm. Mystics had whispered the same truth. All is vibration. Science gave it frequency. Spirituality gave it meaning. Resonance became the bridge between both worlds, uniting matter and mind. A tuning fork, a star, a prayer, all echoed the same rhythm. For Tesla, resonance was not theory, but the very heartbeat of the cosmos. Light as messenger. For Tesla, light was not just brightness, but information. He imagined beams carrying power, communication, and even healing. Light became a sacred force, particle and wave, matter and spirit. In the glow of electricity, he saw the echo of creation itself. Every lamp he designed was for him a fragment of the sun reborn. To hold light was to hold the memory of stars. Tesla believed that light carried destiny, not only utility. The invisible web. Tesla foresaw what we now call the wireless age. Signals crossing the planet, binding people together in real time. He imagined the Earth as wrapped in an invisible net of energy. What others saw as fantasy, he saw as inevitable. His mind anticipated satellites, radio, and global communication. Humanity became part of a nervous system spanning the world. The Earth itself awakened into a planetary mind, shimmering with connection. Nature as machine, machine as nature. In Tesla's thought, machines were not opposed to nature, they extended it. Turbines mimicked rivers, coils echoed lightning, circuits imitated nerves. He blurred the boundary between technology and life with daring clarity. To him, invention was not domination, but imitation of creation. Nature was the original engineer, humanity the apprentice. Each device he built was both tool and metaphor. Machine and nature were two mirrors reflecting one intelligence. The ethics of power. Tesla warned that energy without wisdom would become destruction. Power in the wrong hands could darken the world instead of illuminating it. Science gave us possibility, but spirit had to give us guidance. To handle energy was to handle destiny itself. For him, electricity was not neutral, it was responsibility. Each spark was a test of character as much as of knowledge. To betray power was to betray the future of humanity. Toward free energy, Tesla dreamed of free energy drawn from the earth and sky. An abundance not owned, not sold, but shared by all. Mystics spoke of the same in terms of cosmic gift, the universe as overflowing with life. His machines were attempts to drink directly from that infinite source. He saw scarcity as an error of vision, not of nature. Free energy was not only technical, but spiritual liberation. To share power freely was to share existence itself, the symphony of the future. Tesla's life ended in silence, yet his vision echoed louder than ever. He dreamed of a world lit not only by electricity, but by understanding. Science and spirit, energy and consciousness would form a single symphony. The future would not be mere progress, but harmony. Humanity's task was not conquest, but attunement to the cosmic song. Tesla left us not answers, but instruments. And in that music, the universe still invites us to play. Chapter 8, The Union of All Things. Beyond the Divide. The long journey between science and spirituality was never meant to be separation. Each path carried fragments of truth, scattered across centuries like hidden stars. The physicist and the mystic spoke different languages, yet described the same mystery. Matter and meaning were never enemies, but reflections in opposite mirrors. The divide was human, not cosmic, born from fear of what we could not name. Now the wall dissolves, its fragments glowing like dust in the light. What remains is not two truths, but one vast horizon of unity. The language of energy. From Tesla to Bohm, from Capra to Greene, one message grew louder. Energy is the thread weaving cosmos, matter and consciousness into one fabric. What mystics called spirit, science described as frequency and vibration. Both were pointing to the same pulse of reality, the same invisible current. It whispered in galaxies, in atoms, in human breath and thought alike. The language of energy became universal, crossing cultures and centuries. To listen is to awaken into harmony with the living whole. The mirror of humanity. The universe did not simply exist outside, it reflected itself within us. Our bodies echo starlight, our minds resonate with cosmic waves. Every neuron, every heartbeat is a microcosm of galactic rhythm. The mystic looked inward and saw infinity mirrored in silence. The scientist looked outward and saw infinity mirrored in stars. Both discoveries were never separate, but two doors into one chamber. The cosmos and the self are not two, but one mirror reflecting life. The power of connection. The final truth was never control, but communion. Every form exists only in relationship, sustained by unseen bonds. The atom is a dance of fields, the heart a dance of emotions. Nature reveals itself not as hierarchy, but as web and rhythm. To harm one thread is to shake the entire fabric of life. To honor connection is to align with the law of existence. Unity is not theory, it is survival, and it is love. The ethics of knowledge. Knowledge without wisdom becomes a weapon sharper than steel. Technology without soul builds towers that crumble into shadow. Yet when joined with conscience, knowledge becomes a flame that guides. Science offers power, spirituality offers direction. Together they offer vision. Tesla warned that energy without guidance could destroy, and he was right. The task is not only to know, but to use rightly. Our future depends not on brilliance alone, but on wisdom shared. The sacredness of nature. Every tree, river and stone is not only matter but memory. The Earth is not background, it is the living stage of all life. Ecology shows interdependence. Spirituality calls it sacred interbeing. Science measures the flow of carbon. Spirit feels the flow of meaning. Together, they remind us that the world is not property, but family. To defend nature is not morality, it is survival of the whole. The sacred and the scientific are two eyes seeing one earth. The light within. The greatest discovery was not in machines, but in ourselves. Every human carries the same spark that lights galaxies. Mystics called it soul, scientists called it consciousness, Tesla called it vibration. Whatever the name, it is the same radiance of being. To awaken it is to recognize that we are more than flesh. The universe shines not only above us, but through us. To live is to carry the light within as responsibility. The new story. Humanity's old story was one of fragmentation and conquest. Nations divided, knowledge divided, spirit divided from matter. But a new story is rising, born of resonance and unity. It speaks of cooperation, of wholeness, of shared destiny. It invites us to see the earth not as battlefield, but as symphony. Science and spirituality are no longer rivals, but instruments. Together, they play a song of transformation for a waiting world. The choice of the future. The future is not given, it is chosen moment by moment. We stand at a crossroad of abundance or ruin, unity or division. The tools are in our hands, the wisdom is in our hearts. Tesla dreamed of free energy, mystics dreamed of free spirit. Both visions converge into one choice, abundance shared or scarcity imposed. The horizon waits not for destiny, but for decision. The choice is not for later, it is for now. The final symphony. The journey ends where it began, in wonder. Science and spirituality, matter and spirit, no longer apart, but one. The cosmos hums in frequencies, the soul responds in harmony. Tesla's lightning, Bohm's wholeness, Capra's Tao, Greene's strings, all one melody. It is the music of the universe waiting to be heard. We are not observers, but instruments within that symphony. The final note is not ending, but invitation to play. Throughout history, science and spirituality seemed destined to remain apart, two voices speaking in different languages, unable to hear one another. Yet today, the discoveries of physics and the whispers of ancient wisdom reveal a deeper truth. They are not rivals, but reflections of the same mystery. The universe is no longer just equations or sacred songs. It is both. It is vibration and silence, particles and prayers, numbers and symbols woven together. By opening both eyes, one outward and one inward, we glimpse the infinite harmony that connects all things. If this vision resonates with you, stay with us. Like this video, share it with those who seek answers, and subscribe to the channel. Activate the bell so you don't miss the next chapter in our quantum series, where we'll continue uncovering the mysteries that bind science, spirit, and the cosmos.